This Downtown Sports Rant is being brought to you ad-free by Digital Market Battles, the marketing agency that will help your business fill their pipeline with high-valued leads. They will meet your conversion goals no matter what. Just go to digitalmarketbattles.com, get your discovery call done today, now with AI. Jonathan Pariente, Beast of the East, here with you as we dive in to the All-Star break. The first half of the baseball season is over, and it's time to finally figure out where our teams stand. In this case, our top 10 teams stand at the break. It's time to bring back our MLB top 10. I want to thank Crystal Large. I want to thank Tony Mainville for putting the top 10 for us. I'm coming at you solo. No mouth today. We'll be back, though, to dive deeper into things, including the World Cup. But let's dive in to baseball. And let's see where we stand as far as the half is concerned. And we'll begin with number 10. We'll work our way up to 1. Number 10 on the top 10 are the Cleveland Guardians. 51-46, second in the AL Central. What's intriguing about them, and this is kind of what's very interesting, the Guardians are one of the worst slugging teams in baseball. That's kind of the crazy thing about this. They only have hit 93 home runs as a team. They're hitting 229 average as a team. And yet, here they are, second in the Central, which overall has not really been a strong division, period. The Twins are barely 500, couple games under. The White Sox are the surprise of the whole division right now, being in first place, but only by about a half a game. Game and a half right now, if you will. And then the Royals have just been a train wreck. So overall, the Guardians are very fortunate to even be where they are right now, and they could still be in the mix to win the title because of a couple of rookies that have really broken through. One of them was the kid they called up this year, Travis Bazzana, who was their number 1 pick in 2024. And he's really done a lot in this lineup in a short amount of time for them. He's really helped stabilize, for the moment at least, stabilize some of the issues they were having. Now, he's only hitting 238 on the year, but 7 home runs, 28 ribbies, can't really complain about that. Chase DeLauder is the top hitter in their lineup, hitting 278 with 11 homers and 46 RBIs. So the Guardians, in that regard, they've had also no Jose Ramirez. He's been out with a hamate fracture. The idea is hopefully he'll be back in the lineup, and maybe that could give the Guardians a little spark, and maybe give them a little beef up on offense as we get into the second half of the year. Parker Messick's been another nice surprise for them. He's put up a 2.80 ERA in 18 starts. And that's pretty much what you want if you're the Guardians. You'll have to get a little small runs. You're going to have to, the way the Guardians are built right now, they're going to have to win close games. They're going to have to squeak out 3-2 wins, 4-3 games. They're just not a team that's going to score a lot of runs. So if you're able to be in a low-scoring game with them, you like the Guardians' chances. But Stephen Vogt's going to have a lot to deal with here in the second half. The Guardians are going to have to make a few upgrades to further better their chances to going through to the playoffs. Let's go to number 9 on the top 10, and we're going to stay in the Central. And it's the very team I just talked about that's ahead of them, the Chicago White Sox, 50-45, first in the AL Central. It's really incredible how quickly the White Sox turn things around. The last 324 games combined over the last 3 years, the White Sox had a losing record. Last year, the White Sox had 60 wins. And it didn't look like it was going to be any better this year. But they turned the tables. They've gotten into a good position. They've really gotten some nice surprises. First of all was the free agent they signed from Japan, Munetaka Murakami, who has become one of their top hitters in the lineup. And it's really quite an amazing stat to see. When you see, sometimes one player can impact the lineup so much. It really is just extraordinary. And what Murakami's done, even though, yeah, he had some injuries, he went out with injury for a period of time, but the fact that he's still been able to carry this lineup the way that he has is really just an incredible sight to see. But the rest of the lineup has also picked up the slack, and you have to really respect that. So as a team, the White Sox are hitting 241. It's not great. It's a little better than the Guardians, and they have 129 home runs. Okay, that's pretty good. Sam Antonacci's been another nice surprise in the lineup, leading the team in batting average 287. Colson Montgomery, he leads the offense in home runs with 23, and Miguel Vargas has 59 runs batted in. Their top pitcher in the rotation has been Sean Burke with a 3.41 ERA. So the White Sox have done some good things here. I like what they've got. I like what they're kind of putting together here. The question will be, is it going to be enough to hold off the rest of the Central? That's what we're going to have to really find out. And right now, with Will Venable at the helm, the White Sox have definitely played a better brand of baseball, and they've given Chicago some things to be excited about here. Right now, they currently hold the tiebreaker over Cleveland. So if the playoffs were to have begun today, the White Sox would win the Central. But still, long way to go. The lineup's got potential. I think the pitching staff needs help. It's still not there yet. Obviously, the White Sox really could use an ace, which they don't really have. Yeah, you have Davis Martin. Yeah, you got Burke, but that's really about all you got if you're the White Sox. You need another Chris Sale like they used to have. They used to have a Chris Sale in the past. They need another Chris Sale type ace in their rotation if they're going to make noise in the second half of the year. But it's right there for the taking for them and Cleveland, so we'll just have to see. It's a very close race in the Central. Move on to number 8 on the top 10. We're going to the NL Central, and it's the Chicago Cubs. And it's been a very, very crazy year if you're a Cubs fan this year. It's really been, honestly, how the Cubs are even 12 over with everything that's happened to them. It just tells you a lot about how the resilience of this team. They had a terrible skid. They had lost 10 in a row. But thanks to two 10-game winning streaks to counteract the 10-game losing streak, the Cubs are 12 over as a result. A lot of the rotation has been badly decimated with injuries. They haven't had Justin Steele. They lost Ben Brown. You're relying on Matt Boyd. You're relying on Imanaga. They had to sign David. They had to get David Peterson, who was basically claimed off the scrap heap from the Mets. Colin Rea. They just don't have a consistent mix in the rotation right now. And yet the Cubs are still hanging tough in the National League Central, still behind the Brewers. But despite everything, I'm amazed the Cubs are even here where they are right now. They've also have key pieces of their pen hurt, including their closer, Daniel Palencia. So the fact that the lineup's been able to kind of piece it together says a lot. PCA started off very slowly, but he really has picked it up over the last couple of weeks. PCA is now hitting 291 on the year and 21 homers and 53 RBIs. He was hitting below 200 early on, but he's really pieced it together. Dansby Swanson, he's been starting to heat up a little bit. He hit a $175 at one point, and he's been hitting 333 since June 16th. So he's turned it around over the last 18 games, and that's a good sign. But the pitching staff is still going to be an issue the Cubs have to fix. If they're going to have any chance to even get into a wild card spot, it's still a long shot for them to win the Central, but I think the Cubs have something that can maybe give them a run here. But they need help in the rotation. Imanaga can't do it all by himself. So they're going to need at least another number 3 guy in the rotation to balance out him and Boyd. So we'll see where the Cubs go from here, but definitely they're in a decent spot. Number 7 on the top 10, we're going to go to the National League East. It's the Miami Marlins. And it's really been quite an amazing journey for the Marlins and what they've been able to do after they started off really slowly. They were under 500. They hovered around 500 and then finally got on a good run and have put themselves over 500 at 52-45 going into the second half. It's been an amazing journey to watch this team. Even last year when the Marlins didn't play as good, the lineup they had showed you things. They have potential in this lineup. They're a very scrappy type of team. They work counts. They get on base. They put the ball in play a lot. Otto Lopez has been the key catalyst of that, hitting 339, leading the National League. Xavier Edwards, he's been very solid. Love his bat. Love his ability to put the ball in play. Kyle Stowers, a very nice young lead veteran for this lineup to really help kind of balance things. And you're seeing the reemergence of their ace, Sandy Alcantara, who's back to pitching like the Alcantara of old, who was always that reliable arm. He had a rough couple years, but he really now has gone back into form of the pitcher we remember. So he's fifth right now in the league and with 10 wins. Obviously, the Marlins are still going to need a little more help. They can get a little pitching. I think the Marlins could put themselves in a good spot here. Right now, as a wild card, they look very much like a dangerous threat in the wild card race, although the Cubs do have that top spot ahead of them. But don't think the Marlins can't make a run. And if they get in, they're a dangerous team. We've seen the Marlins. They've surprised a lot of people when they're in the playoffs. So definitely keep your eyes peeled on the Miami Marlins and what they can bring to the table. They have a really good group here. McCullough has done a really, really tremendous job just basically bringing this team back into the mix, bringing them back into where they were. So with you just have to love that. Clayton McCullough has done just a tremendous job with really putting this team into a good winning position. So we'll see where the Marlins go from here as we get to the second half. Let's go to number 6 on the top 10, and that's the New York Yankees. Second in the AL East. I'm a little surprised to see them on this list. They had a hot start. They were 17 over at one point. That was their high water mark of the year. The lineup was looking really consistent at one point. The pitching staff looked really good, but then came injuries, and it really set the Yankees down. Aaron Judge, the rib fracture, still undergoing an MRI as we get into the second half. Even if he comes back, it's looking like August for him. The same thing with Giancarlo Stanton. He's had basically the knees, the hamstrings, calf, you name it. It's been injury after injury with Stanton. He's coming up on 36, 37 years old. This is what you had to kind of expect would happen. And that's the danger when you lock up players to these contracts is injury history. Max Fried, he's been out since early May. Could be coming back pretty soon. That would help the Yankees rotation because right now they're also not only down those three, they're down Carlos Rodon, which is another piece of the rotation. So now you really need Fried to come back pretty soon to balance it out, and maybe the Yankees could make some adjustments. In the first 13 games in June, when the Yanks lost Judge, the Yankees went 9-4. After that, they lost 15 of their last 20, and their offense struggled to score runs. They were struggling to get hits. They went for a period without scoring more than 5 runs since June 17th. They did finally get 12 runs against Tampa to close out a previous road trip, which maybe got things back in check for a period of time. But with no timetable with Stanton, no timetable with Judge, and Cam Schlittler's really carried this rotation over this season. The Yankees have to figure out ways to score runs, obviously, not only with the long ball, but they're going to have to score runs in regard by playing the small ball game and having to squeak out some games. The pen's been able to do that. The pen has been able to keep the Yankees in games. The bullpen has done a good job. Bednar's really pieced it together after that rough game against the Mets. He hasn't given up a run since. But the Yankees are 500 in the American League East, which is a big concern, including that sweep to Boston. They did split with Tampa Bay on their previous trip, but getting swept by the Tigers, losing 2 out of 3 to the Twins, losing 2 out of 3 to the Reds, does not really put the Yankees in a good position at the moment. They're in a bit of a hole. They're trying to dig out of it. They are 3 back now, so maybe it gives the Yankees a little bit of a shot here, but the Yankees need help. Obviously, in the lineup, the bottom half of the lineup is hitting under 200. Other than Ben Rice and other than, I guess Goldie for a time, Cody's been struggling. The other half of the lineup for the Yankees has not hit. They've had too many situations where they can't put balls in play. They can't score with runners on base, scoring position. The infield has been abysmal throughout this stretch, including errors by Volpe and Jazz. So you have to wonder what can change. What will the Yankees do at the trade deadline? I know they're looking at maybe getting a catcher that can hit for them. They're looking at Jeffers. I think Goodman's another option because Austin Wells is barely hitting a $150. That's not helped. So the Yankees aren't going to have an easy go of things in the second half. The Dodgers await them to start the second half of the year. So the Yankees need to get off on a good note to kick off the second half if they're going to really make a run in the American League East. And we'll just have to see where they go from here. Let's go to number 5 on the top 10. We're going to the National League Central back there. It's the Milwaukee Brewers. 59 and 37, first in the Central. They did take a tough series loss here, getting swept in by the Pittsburgh Pirates, which was a bit of a surprise considering how well the Brewers have played against the Central and company all year. It's amazing what the Brewers have done and what they continue to do each year. Yeah, they get rid of players, they trade them away, they lose players, free agency, etc., and yet they still can piece together a winning team. They develop their prospects well. They really have a good ability to evaluate talent. And this is why the Brewers are here. Last year along came a kid named Jacob Missorowski who could throw 105 miles an hour with a blistering fastball. Incredible control for a guy with that type of ability to throw a baseball like that. And he's become the best pitcher in baseball. People can't hit him. Kyle Harrison, he's been a nice improvement out of their rotation as well. Piece they got in the trade for for Durbin, who they dealt to Boston, and got Harrison in return, and he's been a pretty solid cog in the rotation. Brandon Sproat acquired him from the Mets. He's been a little up and down, but the Brewers are still in a very good situation regardless because of how altogether their lineup hits. Do they hit home runs? No. They're 28th in the league in home runs. Okay. But in runs scored, they're 5th in the majors, which is very solid. And that's even with Christian Yelich not even having his best season. He's hitting 243 on the year. Jackson Chourio, he's been beat up with injuries, but he's still hitting 281 despite playing in only 63 games. You figure with all this talent, you've seen what the Brewers have been doing over the last few years. They've been knocking on the door, and you always seem to think, man, why is this team not a potential World Series contender? It's always, though, whoever they run into in the division series or the championship is always what kind of derails the Brew Crew. So you have to wonder if they make the key adjustments and they make the key acquiring pieces in the trade deadline, is that going to improve the direction of the Brewers? We're just going to have to see, but you just have to be admired of the job that Pat Murphy has done to improve this club and what he's been able to do. The middle of the pen has been pretty solid. Having McGill back closing games has been huge. Aaron Ashby's been a very solid middle of the rotation, middle of the bullpen guy. So you really have to like how things have been setting themselves up for Milwaukee. Now you got to see they can continue that into the second half. Let's go to number 4 in the top 10. We're going back to the National League East. It's the Philadelphia Phillies. And it's really been an amazing turnaround for them after they started off just as bad as you can start. They were under 500 much as I think 10 games at one point. The rotation was in shambles. The bullpen was a disaster. The lineup was not hitting like they should. Bryce Harper was struggling. Schwarber was kind of carrying the team, but wasn't hitting consistent. And then the Phillies fired Rob Thompson. Sometimes you just have to make a change. You don't always like it to be middle of the year, but they had to make a change. They bring in Don Mattingly. Really, they wanted Alex Cora, but they got Mattingly. And you know what? Mattingly turned the Phillies around in a big way. They're only 2 back of Atlanta for the National League East. And at 54 and 43, that's a big turnaround. You really just have to love the way they have turned the tides. You love the way that they have played over the last stretch. And finally, Harper and Schwarber have carried the lineup the way they were expected to. The rotation has improved. Zach Wheeler been at the top of that rotation, which is still very solid. Nola, you're still kind of waiting for him. Christopher Sanchez has been a very solid back-end guy at 2.62 ERA. He's really helped be that second anchor for Wheeler in the rotation. So the Phillies are in a very nice position here. And honestly, I think if you give them at least another bat, maybe another arm, maybe the Phillies could even overtake Atlanta in the East. Atlanta has really been struggling mightily. And ironically, that's who we go to at number 3. That is the Braves at number 3 on the top 10. They did pick up a win to close out the first half of the year. They needed to win a series, period. And thankfully, this series they just won, which was their first series win in quite some time. The Braves had lost 7 of their last 8 series, which included a split with the Mets. And then they lost 3 bad series to the Giants, Cardinals, and Padres. So it really set the Braves on a free fall, and it allowed the rest of the teams in the National League East to really close the gap, which they have. The Braves have been hit with a lot of injuries. There's no surprise in hiding that. They have lost Acuna to injury. They've have lost Spencer Strider, who was one of their top pieces in the rotation. Chris Sale has done everything he's needed to carry the rotation as best as he can, but the rest of it has not followed suit. Austin Riley, he's been struggling, hitting only about 200 on the year. I could run the numbers on the Braves, and I'll run them for you very quickly here to really kind of see what has really just what's happened with their season and why they went on this little free fall. And yeah, you can look at, well, lineup's been hurt. And it is true. They've had bats missing, but the Braves with their farm system always can piece together things to improve. But they're hitting 246 as a team, which is a bit of a surprise. You thought with the way they played, they should be hitting at least 270 as a team. But 246 is what they're hitting. A lot of the lineup, as I said, has been hurt. Acuna has been beat up. Even when he has played, only 251 he's hitting on the year. Austin Riley, he's hitting 207. Albies 267. It's a little bit of a low number for Albies to be hitting. Even the same for Matt Olson, even though he has 25 home runs leading the team in that department, but only hitting 267. So it does have you do have to kind of scratch your head. Why have the Braves struggled this mightily? But they're still in a pretty good position. They could still make a run, but they have to start winning series. Let's hope the one that they closed out the first half with was a key ingredient to that, because they had a 10-game lead once in the East, and it plummeted very quickly, and it's down to now just two, with the Phillies right behind them breathing down their neck. So the Braves are going to have to make some key additions at the trade deadline as well, and have to make some moves here for the second half if they want to be a serious contender to close out their division. Number 2 on the top 10, we're going to the AL East. It's the Tampa Bay Rays. 56-38, 3-game lead in the AL East. And it's really, they had that key winning streak where they had won 9 in a row after the Yankees had struggled after the Yankees went on a skid, the Rays took off, and that's why they're ahead of the Yankees right now. The lineup altogether, very solid for Tampa. Really like the bats they have in this lineup. Junior Caminero leading the way with 28 home runs, which is 4th in the American League. Hitting 281, 59 RBIs, pretty solid. Yandy Diaz, very proficient hitter in the lineup. Chandler Simpson, a guy that can get on base. Jonathan Aranda puts the ball in play. The Rays as a lineup are so dangerous. They do not strike out. They're always thinking of putting that ball, a ground ball, getting the ball in the air, doing everything to cause chaos on the base paths for opponents. And that's why they're so difficult as a team to deal with, because they all play the game well. They steal, they run, they have good base running ability. They have very good fundamental baseball on this organization. That's always been a key ingredient of the Rays. And they're 33-13 at home, which is the best in the majors this year. The only concern, and this has always been the key concern with the Rays, they don't have depth in the pitching rotation. Yeah, they have a decent rotation. McClanahan is finally healthy. Nick Martinez, okay, he's been pretty good. Drew Rasmussen, he's been pretty good. But none of these guys give you at least 7 innings a start. They don't go even beyond 6 innings. They had one in Tyler Glasnow who did that, but they let him go. So until the Rays can really find a consistent ace that can give them 6 innings a start, maybe even 7 if need be, to give the bullpen a rest, that's the one little Achilles heel I think you have with Tampa. Are they going to score runs? They will score runs. All right, there's no doubt about it. The Rays will score runs. Do they do it all the time? Is it very consistent? Depends. But Yandy Diaz is leading the way, hitting 322 on the team. Aranda's hitting 297, which is very solid. Caminero hitting now 279. The Rays as a team hit about 260 as a team, which isn't bad. Only 94 home runs, which is a little bit of a surprise, because you figure with that number, maybe with the bats the Rays have, you figure they would have at least over 100. But the Rays do all the other little things correct, and that's why they're in a good position that they're in right now. The key now is for Kevin Cash. How does he improve the starting staff, and does he trust his starters to give him a little more depth as we go into the second half because you're going to need that if you're the Rays. You're going to need your starters to steal a few innings here, give the pen a little breather, and to be able to set up the back end. And I think the Rays will be fine in that regard. And finally, we go to the number one team on the top 10, and I think it's no surprise to anybody. It's the Los Angeles Dodgers. 61 and 36, first in the National League West. For the fourth time in 6 years, the Dodgers look like they're well on their way to winning 100 games and possibly even going to their third consecutive World Series, possibly winning it again. It's very likely the Dodgers, it really doesn't surprise anybody what they've been able to do throughout the last couple of years and how they've been able to spend the money to build this team that they have. They always have a good scouting system. They've always had the ability to get players ready for important games like this. Mookie Betts, even despite getting off to a not a typical start, it hasn't fazed the Dodgers at all. Same thing with Kyle Tucker, who they got in free agency. He's only been hitting about 240 this year, and yet the Dodgers still are 25 over. And that's because also Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani, and company have carried the lineup on the other half. The Dodgers have good bats up and down this lineup, which is why they're so dangerous. Even if their top guys don't hit, somebody on the bottom of the lineup, like maybe a Dalton Rushing, maybe a Will Smith when he comes back, maybe an Andy Pajes or a Rojas one of those days could carry the team on a given day. That's what the Dodgers have. They have somebody different that could step up at any given spot in the middle of that lineup or at the bottom. So you never feel like the Dodgers are ever out of a game. Right now, the Dodgers have the best winning percentage. They have the highest run differential in the game and currently lead 10.5 over the Padres. The only little surprise right here is the Dodgers got swept before the second half, which was a little bit of a surprise letdown, but the Dodgers are still in very firm control of the West, and I don't see any team right now catching them. Everybody below the Dodgers is basically 500 or lower. So that's something I think if you're the Dodgers, you can deal with that. I think they're going to be fine the second half. They should get Edwin Diaz back, who was out for the first half of the year, but they're going to get him back during the second half. They've been without Blake Snell. They've been without Tyler Glasnow, and yet here the Dodgers are. Yamamoto has carried the rotation in a huge way. You've also had Sasaki step up in some spots. He's been kind of a little on and off. But they've also gotten a pretty good improvement out of Emmett Sheehan. Again, they've been piecing it together. They've been piecing the rotation here and there together. Dave Roberts has done a good job in that. They've been piecing the bullpen together. They've maybe had to do closer by committee every little while. Maybe Alex Vesia closes a game out. Maybe Henriquez closes a game out every here and there. So the Dodgers are making it work with what they have. And it's why they're here right now. Dodgers will play the Yankees to start the second half of the year, so that will be a very interesting start for both of those two teams. Really, both teams are kind of going in a specific direction here. And the Dodgers, right now, I could still see them making a move or two at the deadline. I think no doubt they want to get even stronger. I don't think that should surprise anybody. So we're just going to see what happens. But that's where we stand going into the All-Star break, and definitely things are starting to come together. I think you're starting to see some of the pieces beginning to click together here as we get through 96, 97 games of the year. What happens in the second half? We've seen crazy things happen. We've seen teams turn the table. We've seen teams surprise everybody in the second half. Obviously, the trade deadline will be very impactful depending on what teams need to improve their staff, maybe improve the lineup. So we're going to see everything as we get to the second half of the year, which will start Friday. With that, that's going to conclude this edition of Downtown Sports. I want to thank Chris. I want to thank Tony for the MLB Top 10. Mouth will join me a couple days from now. Next episode of Downtown Sports, we will dive into the FIFA World Cup. We'll probably bring Matt O'Boyle back with us to dive in to the Final Four of the World Cup and recap the last 8 that went down this past week. You can listen to Downtown Sports. We're on 24 different platforms. We're on Spotify for Creators, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, CastBox, Bullhorn, Podbay, Listen Notes, Podcast Addict, Verbal, Caster.fm, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, Podvine, Podyssey, Odyssey, iHeartRadio, Podchaser, TuneIn, YouTube, and TikTok. Episodes, rants, digital market battles, specials every week. We are Downtown Sports, and we are where sports come home. Jonathan Pariente, the Beast of the East, saying, goodbye, and good day.